Welcome into Duval Daily from Western Vancouver here. Absolutely gorgeous Vancouver. Having a wonderful time out here with the family. Wanted to talk to y'all a little bit about this Jaguars versus Texans game. As much as everyone wants to kind of throw the Jaguars out, throw this season out, move on, hire a new regime, new coaching staff, new general manager, new staff, all that stuff. The Jaguars still do have 14 games left to play. And, mathematically, they're not completely out of it, right? The Jaguars and the Texans, they split last year. The Texans overall have been a major, major thorn in the side of the Jacksonville Jaguars for a long time. The Texans have kind of owned the Jaguars, quite frankly. And again, split last year. First game was the Jaguars causing a lot of self-inflicted wounds and allowing unbelievable return touchdown by a tight end / fullback. And then second game, super competitive. Jaguars, they were able to outduel CJ Stroud and the Texans. So coming into this season, the Texans made a ton of big splash moves. They upgraded their defensive line. They upgraded their receivers, linebacker core, secondary, all that. They were rightfully the favorite to win the AFC South. And I think that they should be, certainly. They've obviously had struggles with the Minnesota Vikings, but who hasn't so far this year. But I think when you look at the Texans, they still should be the clear favorite in this division, without question. The Jaguars are sitting at 0-3. Two competitive games against teams that are struggling, in the Dolphins and the Browns, certainly, and then an absolute disaster class on Monday Night Football, one of the most embarrassing losses in franchise history this past Monday in Buffalo. There's been some other games you can talk about, score-wise, where the Jaguars, the score might have been a little bit further apart, but when it comes to flat-out embarrassing, that was as bad as it gets. A team that's desperate, needs a win in week 3 in the worst way, and comes out and lays an absolute egg on pretty much every front. It wasn't just the offense or the defense. It was really bad all around. So can the Jaguars realistically pick themselves up off the mat? It's going to be difficult to do. They've got injuries. They've got an offense that just, especially from a passing game perspective, just is not working, whether it be Trevor Lawrence making mistakes here and there, receivers dropping the football, offensive line unable to hold up in pass protection. Coaching, I think, certainly has a lot of the blame on its shoulders as well. Offensively, I think the Jaguars' offense is just stagnated, and they are not a group from a coaching perspective that is pushing things forward in the NFL. They're more kind of yesterday's news, unfortunately. That's kind of how it's looking right now. And I mentioned injuries. You've got injuries to Foye Oluokun. He's not going to play this week, so you've got a backup starting at linebacker. Devin Lloyd missed Thursday practice with a knee, but according to Doug Peterson, he's probably going to be okay, going to be good to go to play in this game, which is huge for the Jaguars, obviously. Evan Ingram's still unlikely to play, so you're missing one of your top passing game options there. You might get Darnell Savage back. That's still kind of up in the air on whether he's able to play or not, and if he's unable to play, you're going to get more of young players trying to fill in at that spot. And obviously Tyson Campbell's still on the injured reserve. He won't be able to play for a couple more weeks at the earliest. So it's certainly not looking great for your Jacksonville Jaguars right now. I think that's easy to say. The Texans do have some injury issues of their own. They haven't been playing maybe up to the level that some fans expected early on in this season. I know that they're very disappointed with the loss to the Minnesota Vikings, but again, they've been handling business in Minnesota this year, no doubt about it. And I think that the Texans still just, even looking at this game before the season, even though the Jags and Texans split last year and I did at least, the Jaguars to be a competitive football team, looking at this game before the season, I kind of penciled it in as a loss for the Jaguars. Of course, I didn't expect the Jaguars to be 0-3. Thought that at this spot they would be 2-1. And probably fall to 2-2 after this week. Now they're fighting just to have a chance to be 1-3 and to get one check in the win column, right? And the reason I give the Texans the advantage even before what we've seen from the Jaguars, which again has been penalties, no execution offensively, poor coaching offensively, self-inflicted wounds, the defense even struggling much more than we expected, injuries, all that stuff. I still expected the Texans to have the advantage because I think they are a better coached team. I thought that before we entered this season. I think D'Amico Ryans is a great leader as a head coach. I think he's also a fantastic defensive coordinator, as proven with his time with the 49ers and then now with the Texans. And then offensively, Bobby Slowick comes from the Shanahan tree, likes to do the outside zone, likes to be creative, get play action going, and they just have more talent overall than the Jacksonville Jaguars do, in my opinion, as well. Like from a receiver core standpoint, as we've got a ferry coming in. Absolutely blowing it out with the horn there. Ferry coming in, but receivers. Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, who's dealing with injury, might not play this weekend. It looks like he probably won't. But still, Nico Collins has become a dominant X-receiver in this league. You've got good running backs. You've got a good offensive line. C.J. Stroud, maybe the best young quarterback in the league right now. Maybe not playing like it at this moment, but still, he's a damn good quarterback. And then defensively, you have a great pair of edge rushers. You've got linebackers that can mostly get the job done. There's been some injuries there and some issues, and in the secondary, you've got a good group as well. Derek Stingley, one of the best young corners in the league. So I just look at the Texans. I think they have a better football team, and I think that they're better coached, quite frankly, than the Jacksonville Jaguars. So even before all this doom and gloom, before the 0-3 start, where the Jaguars are just beating themselves and unable to really get anything done, I would have had the Texans winning this game, and I still do. But what does it mean if the Jaguars are able to somehow scrape by and get a victory here in week 4 against their division rival, the Houston Texans in Houston? To me, it means they have a chance. They have a chance, right? If you get a division win, you get to 1-3. You're hosting the Indianapolis Colts in Jacksonville the week following. The Colts have not been playing great football, to say the least. The Colts struggle in Jacksonville. They haven't won there in a decade, right? Despite playing there every single year, the Colts have not won in Jacksonville in a decade. So it gives you a chance. Again, I'm not saying I think it will happen. I don't. Until these Jaguars show me signs of life, I'm going to have a hard time really believing that this team can get it together. But if you win this football game against the Texans, you avoid the 0-4 start, you get to 1-3, then you host the Colts. You have a chance to be 2-3 heading to London, where your team has had an advantage going over there. You've got the experience on your side of going over there. Caleb Williams has never played a football game in London, right? And then you've got the Patriots the next week, who, it's a tough football team, very good defense, tough running game, but essentially what I'm saying is if you can beat Houston, you give yourself a chance to put together a little run of games before the end of the London trip and put yourself in a competitive chance from a division standpoint. Of course, you have a lot of tough games following that London trip. You got to play the Vikings, you got to play the Packers, you got to play the Eagles. The Jets are on the schedule as well. The Texans on the schedule. It isn't going to be easy, but you could at least potentially give yourself a chance in getting back into this thing and looking like a respectable football team. I'm not expecting that to happen in Houston. I'm expecting the Jaguars to struggle. When the Jaguars play middle of the road / bottom feeder teams, they've looked competitive so far this year. And that's kind of how it looked at the end of last year, dealing with injuries as well. But when they play teams you expect to be competing at a high level in January and maybe even in February, that's when it hasn't looked so good lately. And that's what I expect the Texans to be. So I don't expect the Jaguars to win this football game, unfortunately. But that'll do it here. Just some thoughts on this game, some thoughts on what it could mean, and why I still don't believe that the Jaguars will get it done. But mathematically, they're not eliminated. And if they are somehow able to get a victory in Houston, there's a chance they could flip things around a little bit and get competitive, but it's not going to be easy. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content here, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear. Won't be able to ship anything until we get back next Monday on the 7th, so keep that in mind. But if you want to support the channel further, you can check the website out, get some Duval gear. You can also become a channel member here on YouTube. Really appreciate y'all's support. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of this vacation.